Hello, so welcome to this week's episode of Media Musings, and we're starting off Rock Opera Month with a bit of contention. I see we had Tusk in the chat an hour ago, who had some issues.
Hey, Tusk.
Hi, Tusk.
If Tusk is still there, hello. And hello to Never Again.
Hi, Sandy.
Yes, Sandy.
And of course, to anyone who may be lurking and or watching in the future.
Tusk is still here.
Yep.
Tusk is still here.
And of course, a special thank you to my two patrons, Santi the Sane and GeoSam.
Yeah.
Cool.
So now a little like historical primer for the discussion. So the album we're talking about is, Tommy by The Who, which was the first, asterisk, depending on how you count it, the first rock opera written, and The Who's fourth studio album. Now, the rock opera essentially, instead of bringing rock and roll to the opera format, it essentially evolved out of the concept album, which where bands would start theming their albums around a certain theme, and then eventually they, the rock opera as a genre kind of evolved out of that to tell a story through a rock album. Out of the 4 examples for this month, I'll say this one is probably the weakest. No, it's the weakest out of the ones that we've picked, but it is the first. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was the first, to be honest. I would have... Yeah. No, I won't mention.
I feel like at this point I'm going to jump into your historical primer there and say this was released in 1969.
Okay.
With the prevalent attitudes of the time.
Yeah.
With the prevalent concepts of the time and certain comments that are passed within this album are
Of the time.
To be taken in their context.
Yes.
I mean, there were a couple of things that could possibly be described as early rock operas before this. The story of Simon Summerpath by a band called Nirvana. Now, obviously not the Kurt Cobain Nirvana, but a British psychedelic kind of band. But I think, this is, you could probably say that Tommy's the first one to be something of a big hit. That would bring it. But again, and I know Noodle is jumping in to say some stuff about this.
I have feelings about this. I have thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. And as I said, I only know a few of the songs off for Tommy. I mean, there's some good couple of good standalone songs that'd be good songs by themselves, I think. How this thing meshes together as some sort of coherent kind of plot. I don't think it does.
Coherent is the operative word in that sentence.
Plots, yeah.
I should also point out, in 1969, it took them an entire album to tell a story. By 1972, Meatloaf could do it in 9 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to look at things that are stories in a thing, you got a Bohemian Rhapsody with Queen, and you've got all those dynamics, everything in one song, and
obviously it's not. This isn't even the Who's best attempt at a rock opera.
And they didn't even write all of the album anyway.
I mean, I should point out that if you sit down and listen to the album for the Rocky Horror Picture Show, it creates a fairly coherent plot, and I would argue one that's more coherent than this, and is roundabout contemporary.
So I'd say
that by the time I did Quadrophenia, I think the Who kind of got it right in Quadrophenia.
I will say though, my comment about the Rocky Horror Picture Show, when I say coherent plot, I mean coherent relative to what it was, as opposed to coherent, because if Rocky was anything, it was not coherent.
Coherent, yes. But there were other rock operas at the time as well. I mean, it wasn't. Tommy wasn't the only thing around that could have been conceived as a rock opera, but.
I will say I have serious issues with calling it a rock opera.
Yeah.
Operas have a coherent plot. They have a set structure. And this is quite clearly, to me, looking at the structure of it, listening to it, it's trying to follow the structure of a traditional opera.
Yeah.
At least vaguely is trying. It's looking at a map of a traditional opera through like blurry glasses. There's fingerprints on the glass.
Yeah.
And it's trying, but it's also quite clearly being conceived and put together by someone who doesn't have the first clue how to do it.
Yeah. As a bit of an analogy, if you say something like a fish is is the concept album, and like a true amphibian is like a rock opera, Tommy's like Tiktaalik.
No, I'll give you a better one. Tommy is what happens when someone who knows very little about the technical aspects of music tries to describe a rock opera to an alien, and then the alien tries to write a rock opera.
It's.
I mean, you're dealing with a group that's used to writing singular songs that have a theme to promote a theme, and what they've done is they've got, let's have a basic sort of idea for a story and then write a whole heap of songs about it.
Yes, but they quite clearly have no clue how to put a narrative together.
Oh no, there's no narrative. There's this basic idea for a story, and then lots of songs.
And then he said, and she said, and they said.
Yeah.
And it's
whereas when you have a real opera, of course, the narrative and the story drives the songs.
Drama. It's a drama.
Whereas in this case,
the narrative drives the music. In this, the music is driving the narrative. But the music isn't up to scratch either.
Yeah. Though
I don't read the music.
I do feel like 21's going to be a good year.
I'm going to say something controversial about that. And I'm going to say a lot of the Who's songs aren't up to scratch. Not just
3-chord riff.
Yeah.
You know, they're famous for the 3-chord riff. So, no one expects technical brilliance from the Who. That's not what the Who is.
No.
What we do expect is technical competence. And I can honestly say I heard that in this album, except for more than 1 or 2 songs.
Yeah.
And even then, I was struggling.
Effectively, they took on more than they could chew.
Yeah, on the scale of Boris the Spider to Baba O'Reilly, much of Tommy's more on the Boris the Spider side of things.
Look, what the Who has done with this album. This is a 6-year-old with their first recorder trying to play like a classic Renaissance piece.
I've just got an image in my head of some kid with a recorder going, da 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 da.
I've got a recorder here. Do you want me to try it? It is though. They've gone. they've jumped in at the deep end and they've forgot their armbands.
Yeah.
That's what's happened.
And there's so many other groups that have done such a better job since of creating a rock opera.
And I mean,
Pink Floyd, for example.
I mean, all credit to them for actually doing it for the first time. Because I'm sorry, 4 tracks is not a rock opera. It's just not. No. So this is, this is a moment. All power to them for doing it.
Yeah.
And it obviously spawned a genre and, credit for that. But, in the same way we're not driving cars that were designed off the original patent and things have developed, so too the rock opera has been required to do so.
Yeah. And, the next one chronologically, though not the next one we're covering because I decided to pair things what I thought would be thematically. The next one chronologically, 2112, is leaps and bounds ahead of Tommy.
Yeah.
Again, I've not heard it yet, so we'll have to wait and see what I think.
Yeah.
I should disclaimer, I'm coming to this as a very interested hobbyist musician. I play 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different instruments. Not very well. Like I can play jingle bells on 4 different instruments.
And we're proud to announce coming next year, Asterix the Rock Opera by Noodle and Scudder.
That's 3 to 4.
That's the big
Noodle on it.
The cat's out of the bag. That's the big project we've been hinting at. Okay.
Featuring Noodle on recorder, harmonica, acoustic guitar, and clarinet.
Scummer
so we have woodwinds and brass
on the air guitar
and
Scummer on the air guitar. We need
and occasionally the tambourine.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're percussion, are you, Scummer?
And so hello to Wooly.
Wooly?
Hi, Wooly.
That's my head's tilting because of my dyslexia, not because there's anything wrong with the name. I'm just looking like
trying to make those letters come in the right order.
Yeah.
I think it's, as you said though, because of the fact Tommy is significant in the evolution of this genre for all of its shortcomings.
Yeah.
You kind of have to cover it, really. But like I said, I'm not as familiar with all of Tommy and whatever, but I know a few of the songs off it, and actually from what I've seen of what little sort of plot that is tried to be stretched together for this, I can see why acid was a big thing in the 60s.
You needed it, didn't you?
I'm not sure I am kind of wondering how much of it was how much they might have been taking when they were writing this. I don't know.
Also, they took a lot for most of their albums. So
I also wonder how much of it was written by Keith Moon.
Okay.
When did he have time? Was he ever sober enough to hold a pen in the 60s?
Well, I mean, he wrote more.
Keith Moon wrote Tommy's Holiday Camp.
Yeah,
we'll
get to
credited
that.
For that. So, as to they haven't. Most of them are credited to the entire group. But there's a few other songs that are credited to a few of them individually. So, but Keith Moon wrote Tommy's Holiday Camp. So,
out of all of them, that's actually probably the one I would have picked for to be written by Keith Moon.
But you've got some really. When you look at some of the writers in there, because obviously they had the old blues song, didn't they? The Hawker, which was Sonny Boy Williams II, is kind of part of Tommy.
Yeah.
So, shall we get into the plot as of as much of a plot there is.
I'm gonna say something before we do.
Okay.
If you like this album, you're not allowed to complain about Mamma Mia. This is basically proto Mamma Mia. Someone who's gone, oh, we have songs. Let's put it into a plot. Doesn't matter if the plot makes sense. Let's just do it. Though. So did I. I think
I love ABBA. So
yeah, no, but I think what we have learned is that if you're gonna create a story around music, have the music first and then come up with the plot, not the other way around. Yeah, which is what's happened here, quite clearly. But anyway, off we go.
So, Tommy is the story of the life of, a deaf, dumb, and blind kid who grows up to be, to essentially become a messiah figure / cult leader.
What was that Lovecraft book with the alien boy? It gave me those vibes. The one we did on here. No, the one with the alien boy who came and started a sex cult.
Oh, that wasn't Lovecraft. That was Heinlein. You're thinking Stranger in a Strange Land.
That's the one. No wonder it gave me such Heinlein vibes. It gave me, yeah. Like there's certain songs on this album that give me real vibes for that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I like.
Hey, I buy Eric Clapton records.
And I do like Pinball Wizard. It's one of the few songs in the whole thing that I actually like.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Yeah, I like Pinball Wizard. It's not my favorite Who song, but I do like it.
No, definitely not. And I'm not a Who fan, but I quite like Pinball Wizard as a song. If you take it out of that album and you put it in a classic collection of theirs, it's actually much better.
Yeah.
I could possibly argue that I might like to a couple of the songs in this. I might even make the argument that Elton John's cover of Pinball Wizard was better.
I think a lot of songs on here have had better covers.
Definitely, I think without a doubt, say Tina Turner's version of Acid Queen was way better.
Anything Tina Turner does is way better. Tina Turner is queen. Don't argue about Tina Turner.
Pretty accurate there.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to think if there's anything she ever did legitimately worse than like the original, and I cannot for the life of me think of it. One, so I don't think I will.
I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna dive straight in with the pun and just say Tina Turner simply the best.
Actually, I'm gonna say Tina Turner did do a version of a song that was not as good as the original version. But because the original version was Icon Tina Turner anyway, she gets a pass on that, and that was the reprise of Nutbush City Limits. Because the original was better. But
was it?
Yeah, but do you want to listen to a track that's got Iconic these days?
Yeah, and I mean, I was not that good.
Ike was not that good a singer. The reason that track was better is because it was.
He doesn't say. I bet he sings a word on that. That is all Tina's, and she wrote the song.
Tina. Yeah,
well, the only reason why it would have been better was because Tina was younger and had more vocal chops when she was younger.
In the 90s, that sounded really different, which wasn't as good. But
that has more to do with her getting older and losing some of her vocal chops.
No, it has more the fact that they tried to change the structure of the song a bit, and it didn't work as well.
I mean, that as well, but I mean, age has got a lot to do with it. I mean, have you heard Bonnie Tyler sing recently?
No, I
love Bonnie Tyler.
She doesn't have the power she had in the 80s.
Was dead.
Let's try and steer this back on track.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so we
have
track
totally
one.
Clips to the heart.
Yeah. We have track one. Setting. This is the area, the overture.
Yeah.
Setting Tommy up as little orphan Tommy raised by a single mother. a war widow.
The orphan Tommy. I love it.
Little orphan Tommy.
And it's largely just a musical track.
Yeah.
It's a basic overture.
Yeah.
And
it's very basic for an overture.
And like most of Tommy, it's like most of the things we'll say about Tommy, out of the 4, well, actually out of the 3, because one of the rock operas we're covering doesn't have an overture, if I remember right. But so out of the 3 rock operas that have an overture, this is the weakest.
Well, I mean, technically an overture should give you a highlight of what's coming up in the rest of the songs, because that's what they normally do. That's why it's called an overture, because it brings in elements of all the music that you get throughout the rest of the opera.
Yeah, well, it's the same.
Exactly do that.
And all this is, I mean, I can see what it's getting at. The boy was born without a father. It's making the point, but it doesn't. An overture is supposed to be more than that. It's supposed to draw you in, and this just doesn't.
It's an introduction, not an overture.
Yeah. And that is a good point, Tusk, is that technically Tommy isn't dumb or blind.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So we've had the overture, and we established that Tommy's going to be raised without a father. Then we have It's a Boy, which to me, I would say that the first 3 tracks on this album should be what was the overture.
Well, yeah, the first 3 tracks basically should have been one song.
Mm-hmm. Because otherwise there's just no cohesion.
Though I will say, this is also in the era where you couldn't really get away with having longer songs.
Excuse me, within 3 years, Meatloaf was releasing 9 and 12-minute songs on an album.
Yeah, and you have Pink Floyd releasing songs that would take half a side. So, yeah.
Meatloaf started work on Bat Out of Hell in 1973, and that had on it Paradise by the Dashboard Light, which is 9 minutes.
An amazing
song. It had I Would Do Anything for Love, which is 11 minutes uncut. Yeah. And there's another one that's Objects in the Rearview Mirror is a 12-minute song. So, you can have longer songs if you've got the skill to pull it off.
You actually have to have talent for that.
Yes, you have to be able to play more than 3 notes and sing more than 2, and
sing more than an octave.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah.
So It's a Boy. Now, the first thing I want to comment on is the way they sing this in a round.
Yeah.
It's again, I don't expect technical brilliance from The Who. I don't. Yeah. This is the band that made its name on a 3-chord riff. I don't expect brilliance. What I do expect is competence.
Yeah.
And it is not competence to sing in a round for a 24-second track with one line in it.
Yeah.
It is, frankly, an insult to your audience.
Especially when it's your first main song. It's like...
Yeah.
And the use of a round is, quite frankly, the kind of thing we were taught to do at 5 years old when we were playing triangles in the school hall.
It can work well as a bridge. So, like,
it can work as a bridge, but not as an opening. And you've got a little
30-second break between 2 songs. Brilliant.
You're going to have a bad month.
Rock operas can be good depending on who does them.
Yeah, they can be good.
Yes.
This is not one of those examples.
No.
So, yeah. I don't rate it technically. I don't rate it musically. I don't rate it lyrically.
Yeah.
There was some redeeming aspect to the lyrics in the overture.
Yeah.
But immediately, we already know we're 2 tracks in and we're being told the story. We're not being shown it.
Yeah.
And as a writer, that irritates me. You're supposed to be telling me a story. I'm supposed to be drawn into this narrative, not being told, and he said, and she said, and they said, and this happened, and that happened. So fucking what? Give me something.
That's how you write an individual song. It's not how you write an opera.
Even still, with an opera, there should be a plot.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with you, Noodle. I'm saying if this was an individual song and a one-off song, and they were doing he said, she said, and you're getting to a point in the song, and then your song's over, I can get that. I can get behind that. But when you're writing an entire an entire opera,
I should point out as well, I am a tiny bit of an opera nerd, tiny bit. I like certain operas. So I am going to judge this on the basis of classic operas. Yeah. And I know I shouldn't.
But even if you judge it against modern properly orchestrated rock operas, like if I mean, the big things you could look at for that, which I know we won't be covering, is like War of the Worlds, John Wayne. Yeah. War of the Worlds, or even Jesus Christ Superstar, which is a rock opera.
Yeah.
As a proper musical, but it is a rock opera.
But no, or like even comparing against the other ones that we're discussing this month, you know, Hero, which is next week, 2112, and then Beethoven's Last Night.
Yeah, I mean, the opera's developed in a very specific way to have clear acts like dramas. This doesn't have that, and it irritates me. No. It irritates me that this dares to call itself even on nodding terms with opera. I just...
But yeah, the first 3 tracks should have been just one song.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Ballad of Tommy, not the rock opera.
Yeah. This is the Ballad of Tommy.
Yeah.
And it's almost a Greek story. It's almost more in the style of something like the Iliad or the Odyssey than it is an opera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy, I'll certainly say that.
Yeah, it's definitely a tragedy.
I did in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why they chose the style they did, to highlight the fact that it's a fucking tragedy.
Yes, but it's a tragedy that the damn thing was ever made.
Oh. Yeah, but I like Pinball Wizard, so...
again, because there are some good songs on this. I mean, let's, but again, almost feel could have just been an album or something, you know.
Yeah.
I think the fact they tried to stretch this really...
This story could have been told in 3 songs.
Really bad idea for a plot into this.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
And like the only thing I like, the only thing I really like about the overture is the fact that like about halfway through when you get to the like intermission song, it's called Underture.
Yeah. So, and then we have this first main track of You Didn't Hear It.
So we're just wait.
Because we've talked about It's a Boy, there's, you know, with the round and everything else. You Didn't Hear It continues the same utter lack of technical competence.
Yeah.
But this, I get friggin'. This is where the plot just dissolves. Not that there was one to start with, but it's dead in the water.
It basically.
If it wasn't bad to start off with, it goes downhill from here.
Yeah, it basically devolves into, here's how shitty his childhood was.
Yeah, this is like misery porn on acid, and it was the 60s, so it probably really was on acid.
Like out of this whole bit.
This is as happy as it gets.
The only good song from the first 10 tracks is Acid Queen.
No, I don't know. I think Christmas is all right, but we'll get to that.
I haven't heard Christmas, so I haven't heard the whole album, but I've heard songs from it.
So, in You Didn't Hear It, we established that mother and father, although they both sing falsetto, so how can you tell the difference? Mother and father are training this boy not to speak or hear or see.
Yeah, all of the characters oddly sound like the Who.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't get. If you're going to do a big rock opera album, why not have guests come in and
or just give everyone a part instead of singing everything as a group?
Yeah, because you work with other groups anyway, so you invite other people to come in and sing a part for you.
I will say, once again, bringing up ones that we will discuss later this month, Rush made it work.
Yeah, but what I mean is, if I was going to write a rock opera with 4 parts, and the 4 of us were going to perform it, which we're not going to because I can't sing, so don't make me. But hypothetically, right, what I wouldn't do is write a rock opera with 4 distinct parts and then say, let's all just sing all of it together. I'd say, right, Rin, you take part A, Jen, you take part B, Scummer part C, and I'll, so you've got distinctive voices telling the story, and distinctive characters within it. Or we'd have one person narrating and then distinctive characters. So the mother would be a character, the father would be a character, and the boy would be a character.
Yeah.
Later on, the doctor would be a different voice. That would be how I would do it. I wouldn't. There's just so little thought gone into the arrangement of these songs. It just.
Yeah.
Whew.
Okay.
It says, I mean, like I said earlier, it says a lot really when they pretty much, I think after the release of this, they had to include a sort of synopsis of what the story is about. It says a lot.
Okay. If an opera is in your language and you need a synopsis to understand it, after hearing it, possibly repeatedly, it has failed as an opera. Most operas, traditional operas, are in Italian.
Yeah.
Therefore, as someone who doesn't speak Italian, I am perfectly comfortable saying I would need a primer if I attended an opera with the lyrics in it, with a synopsis of the plot.
Yeah.
And of each song. I would not expect someone who is fluent in Italian to need that primer.
Yeah.
I mean, you can...
To an extent. Opera style of singing is a bit weird, but I would not expect them to need the lyrics written down for them and to tell them what the plot is. They should be able to gather that.
As you said, you can have a narration with it. That works. I mean, and a good example of that would be Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, because a lot of the tracks are instrumentals.
Yeah, when it's instrumentals, opera's not instrumental.
The idea that you have the fact that you have little excerpts, some quotes in the book of the journalist character, in between songs or following a narrative, so you can. But it's not explaining. So, but it's mainly because a lot of the tracks in that are instrumental.
Yeah.
And that was done very, very well.
It
was.
It's one of the
I'm
major
talking about
rock operas.
A traditional opera with sung parts. If I speak the language it's being sung, so if I'm listening to Wagner and it's in German and I'm a German, I shouldn't need the lyrics written down in front of me as I'm listening. I shouldn't need to be told what's going on in the story.
And you
I
do
should
get
be able
modern,
to gather that.
You do get modern opera musical situations where where not everything is sung. Where you have speech. I mean, it was done in older operas by just having more a simpler kind of singing in between the main songs.
And I appreciate that this album doesn't have a visual stimulus. I appreciate that as well. But that makes it worse that they've failed to provide a coherent narrative without the visual stimulus. Because they can't even give the excuse of, well, we were relying on the visual stimulus to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Because they weren't, clearly.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I can sit and listen to something like Tornado, and I don't need to see a stage. I can just listen to it and pick up the thing if I speak enough Italian.
Yeah.
I mean, an example of that, you could listen to an album of something by Gilbert and Sullivan, which is in English to start off with, and you don't need to watch what's happened on the stage to follow the entire plot of the music.
Yeah, I mean, like, with very little narration, you could listen to an album of ABBA songs in the order they are in Mamma Mia and pick up what the plot is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This doesn't do that.
No.
That's why I have issue with it.
So
we have this kid's kicked and destroyed before he's... And then we have Amazing Journey.
Yeah.
Which is just...
The look of disappointment on your face, Noodle. like this could have been so much better.
Yeah.
You know those teachers who look at the kid and they just know the kid is just not doing what they should be doing?
It's one of those kids the teacher looks at and they go, I have to make sure that you can at least sign your name so you can get social security payments.
Yeah, like I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, if I teach you to sign your name and recite your national insurance number, I've done all I can for you.
Yeah.
It's kind of how this album makes me feel about The Who. It's very... It's like I'm the teacher and I've got this child and I have to fill out a report card, and all I'm putting on the report card are the words "must try harder" and underlining it twice.
Yeah.
That's what's going on in my head right now. It's just must try harder.
Yeah.
Someone else speak, please.
Yeah. So, anyways, we like a lot of the earlier songs, well, a lot of the songs in the album are like really bland and short. It's almost like if the album was sold on its number of tracks.
Oh, because what is it? It's 4 sides. So it would have been 2 albums.
So it's
it would have been 2 albums when it came out.
Yeah. So
pre-tape. So it would have been 2 albums as well.
24 tracks on this, I think.
Yeah, 24 tracks.
Yeah.
And it's
as I said, we are in a
just over an hour of playtime.
But we are in a time when there was still a lot of albums that only had 5 or 6 tracks at the time. So that probably was a selling point.
Yeah.
I'd say.
So you got good value because you got more songs, even if they were shit.
You could say quantity over quality with a lot of this stuff. But as I said, there are a couple of gems on here, though, obviously.
Yeah.
So
like,
I mean, we had the Sparks instrumental that followed on from. I'm sort of going through chronologically.
Yeah.
We had the Sparks instrumental that followed on from Amazing Journey.
Yeah.
And then Eyesight to the Blind, which is, I've got my Spotify thing that I listen to it on. And Eyesight to the Blind, what I did is I was listening, the ones that I found, reasonable, I liked, just so I could say. And this was the first one that I've said.
Yeah.
This is the one
and I think it's because they didn't write it.
No, this is Sonny Boy Williamson II, who's a legendary blues artist. But but it was recorded. The Who wasn't even the second people to record this. B.B. King actually did version of this before. And I'd say you keep a chance because I love blues music anyway. Sonny Boy Williamson II is so underrated. He's a fantastic musician.
Yeah, we need to do a week on the blues, or like a month on the blues. We need to do the Robert Johnson album. We need to do something on Sonny Boy Williamson,
B.B. King, John Lee Hooker, any of them. Yeah,
John Lee Hooker.
I mean, it's not the only good song on this album because we're not going to take it on the album. And that's a rock anthem.
It's the first good song on this album.
Yeah.
Which says a lot about it, given that it's the first good song and they didn't write it.
Yeah.
Or arrange it. Yeah. Or do anything other than use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and I can see why they used it. It fits their plot as best it can, but it does feel a bit like it was shoehorned in. And it feels like the plot was built around including this song rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Oh, I think the whole thing was very much in that vein, wasn't it? We have these songs that we kind of like, and if we put them in this order and throw in a few extra bits and pieces here and there, we can make something that's a solid theme all the way through.
Because it really does feel like they're trying to like push the theme of the senses just through sheer repetition.
Yeah.
But so Christmas, you liked Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas was the first track that I found at least to be that they'd written.
Yeah.
That I found to be lyrically competent. Ish.
Yeah.
The sound of it was not as immature as the other tracks.
Yeah.
Now, all this is relative.
Yes.
See,
would I actively seek out Christmas as a song to listen to ever? Probably not. But in the context of this album, it's one of the better tracks.
But that's the problem. If you pulled out the better tracks from this album and you put them in a single album on their own with a few other good songs, you probably go, "This isn't a bad album." But
if you
of what they've tried to do,
they've swum. They've jumped in the water before they can swim. That's what's gone on here.
Yeah.
And it's Christmas for me is one of those tracks. I think that there's a sense of irony within the song. And this this repetition of the Tommy, can you hear me, Tommy?
Yeah.
It sets something up that's quite important to the plot as it goes.
Yeah.
It has it's got a darkness to it. There's certain Christmas songs that have got a darkness to them, and this does tap into that. it's relative. I'm trying desperately to find something positive so I don't come across as an utter bitch. And that's about the best I can say. It's not. I mean, it's not brilliant. Give me 20 minutes with a pen and paper, I could probably come up with something that's lyrically better. But for the album, it's one of the better ones.
Come to, and then of course we come from Christmas to one of the more nasty songs on the album.
Yeah, the first trigger warning of the album.
Yeah, Cousin Kevin.
Hold on. I'm going. A little shit.
Yeah, hold on.
I have the lyrics in front of me.
Which again was not written by them.
No,
it was. Sorry, yes, it was. No, it was written.
Yes, it was. It's just by Townsend and Entwistle. Was John Entwistle?
You're right. Sorry.
So we have this disabled child, because this child is profoundly disabled.
Yeah.
Deaf, blind, and mute. Left alone with an able-bodied family member.
Who's making his own fun by torturing him.
Literally torturing him.
Yeah.
And I have a theory, although I'm not entirely sure I can prove it, that cousin Kevin is Uncle's child.
Yeah, I have a feeling that cousin Kevin is Uncle Ernie's child.
Is taking out Uncle Ernie's proclivities on Tommy.
Yeah.
Is supposed to be what we glean from this.
Yeah.
Which doesn't excuse it, but explains a lot of it.
Yeah.
It
doesn't show us or tell us anything to support or disprove that theory in the text, but I get the sense that Kevin is Ernie's
Kevin's
kid.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
And there is an uncle who is also fucked up, and therefore 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is what's going on right now. This track sent shivers through me.
Yeah.
Just the lyrics sent shivers through me.
I did not enjoy listening to Cousin Kevin.
No. If you've ever been bullied in school, if you've ever been bullied at all, this track will
skip it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skip it. And then we move on to Acid Queen.
Yes. Which I actually kind of enjoyed. I mean, it's one of the more competent songs on in the album.
Yeah. Acid Queen's the next song that I liked.
Ooh. I did not know that.
That probably explains a lot.
Yeah. But
because the way this plot goes is, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, let me put it that way.
But Acid Queen musically was one of the better ones. Yes.
I agree with Summer, the Tina Turner version is better.
I will say it aged badly given that it uses a certain slur.
But given that the character is a member of that marginalized community, I would say you can argue reclamation.
Yeah.
You can argue. I don't know how far you'll get with that argument, but you can certainly try and argue it. And it's supported within the text and the first person pronouns.
Yeah.
It's not musically brilliant.
Yeah.
But it is musically competent.
Which is what we expect from The Who.
And I have found that the songs on this album that I do not entirely despise or I'm not entirely indifferent to are songs that are musically competent.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. One of few.
Yeah.
They've got a hit rate of about 4-1 over the whole album, although they don't come in a nice sequential order of 4 bad ones, 1 good one, 4 bad ones, 1 good one. It's not how they go.
No.
There's
enough good ones to make a single side of an album.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that I would say are reasonable.
Yeah. And so, you know, Acid Queen is basically, I read it as, you know, LSD as experimental drugs to try and cure Tommy.
Yeah, that seems to be what's going on, especially in having already heard the Hawker.
Yeah.
Seems to me like that's where that's going.
Yeah.
And leads into Underture.
Yeah.
The instrumental. Now, the instrumental is not bad.
Yeah.
For The Who, the instrumental is not bad.
Yeah, and actually, I kind of enjoyed Underture as an instrumental.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use it as a ringtone because it's not really ringtone style. Yeah. It's not loud enough to be a ringtone. But it's not, there's nothing, I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with it.
And it
is what it is.
And we do hear some strains of the riff of the from Pinball Wizard in there.
Yeah.
So it foreshadows nicely.
Yes. And now we come with the 2 songs about Uncle Ernie, which I thought was actually one song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
hold on. I'll get the banner back up again.
Yes.
So it's, do you think it's all right and fiddle about?
Yes.
Yeah. This was.
I
hesitate to. Yeah.
I felt sick listening to the song.
Yeah. It's obviously a very raw subject for whoever wrote it.
Yeah.
I also think,
which, as we now know,
yeah,
where a lot of the ideas came from.
Had I not known where it came from, I would have been saying it's there for shock value and it has no place there.
Yeah.
Because this story is horrendous enough without that on top. With it being there, I wonder how much of this was catharsis,
therapy.
Yeah.
Cathartic and therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is valid and fine. But just if you're going to listen to it, trigger warning. Because
especially if you're somebody who's been through anything like that. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have not listened to those songs myself. Because
I will say, for me, do you think it's all right, Hit Me Harder Than Fiddle About?
Yeah.
Because for me, do you think it's all right, held up a mirror to what are supposed to be the safe adults in a child's life?
Yeah.
And so to me, that to me is the track that is the emotional hard hitter and is where, if anywhere on this album is good and has artistic value, it's there.
Yeah.
But for all the wrong reasons.
And
it has value because it shows something important and it says something, not because it's positive in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And then
it's tragic.
And then like Pinball Wizard comes in basically like a breath of fresh air.
Pinball Wizard at this point, I think we get to the point where this kid is so downtrodden.
Yeah.
He's so beaten, broken, destroyed in every single way.
Yeah.
You've got to give him something, otherwise it becomes, as horrendous as it is to say, it becomes unrealistic that this kid survives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, after all of this, horrendousness, Tommy basically dives into the game of pinball. And
finds that he can play because he can feel the vibrations.
Yeah.
And he's good at it.
Yeah.
He's good. He makes a name for himself. And to me, I think there's great parallels with this, and knowing now that what we know about Townsend, Tommy got his pinball machine. Did Townsend pick up an instrument?
Yeah.
That's that parallel. And Pinball Wizard has always had that parallel of the kid who had nothing and was nothing finding the one thing that's going to get him out of that situation.
Yeah.
That's what Pinball Wizard is about. It's a rite of passage.
Like
it's been such a good theme song for those sort of ideas. It's actually been used in a lot of other movies.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's a reason why Pinball Wizard is the song, is the track from this album that that has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Or that, and we're not going to take it.
Yeah. Although, for me, Pinball Wizard has got very much Jukebox Hero vibes.
Yeah.
It's that kid come from nothing, see something, find something that works for him and uses it to get out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
What I am horrified by within this plot is that Tommy doesn't make it out and doesn't break the cycle.
Yeah.
Spoilers for a 40-year-old album.
Yeah.
50-year-old album.
I was trying to talk for a minute and then I realized I was fucking muted. Yes, this is the one. So this is the one song anyone is gonna know from this album, isn't it? We're talking now. And it has stood the test time. I mean, this is a legitimately good song, brilliant song. Brilliant enough to redeem this entire album. No. But it's one thing. You say Tommy to anyone, they're going to say, "Oh, Pinball Wizard."
Yeah.
And this has stood the test of time. Now, like I said, I might have a controversial opinion that I might think Elton John's version is slightly better than the Who's.
I think you're right, Jeff.
Controversial opinion on that one. But
I would have heard Elton John's version first, actually. To be honest,
I will say, I think the Who actually did the backing for his. It's just I don't know, it's just I don't know, just tiny bit faster and whatever. It just seems to work well for me. But
I think my problem with the Who, my problem with this album is the same problem I have with the Who. Which is they're a group of low-skill musicians and low-skill singers making a name because they happen to hit on one or two halfway decent tracks. I don't particularly rate the Who skills-wise.
No.
I think a lot of the Who's popularity is in the everyman presentation.
I think, generally, if you look at a lot of what is going to be the big hits of the Who, are the songs that where they play to their strengths, and which is just doing the basics kind of right.
Repetition and basic chord riffs.
I will say there's certain bands that they play to that strength. One of my favourite bands in the world, AC/DC. But
AC/DC playing the same damn riff in 8 different songs.
But a lot of it is they know what they do well,
and they stick to it.
Go off to any concept records or something like that. There are times when they've And they've either got like a rock and roll sort of bit vibe to them, or they've got a bluesy vibe to them. That's kind of what they do, you know. And they know what they do. They do it well.
But AC/DC, you know what you're getting with AC/DC.
Yeah.
Every time, no matter what, you are getting something from AC/DC that you turn it up, all the speakers on full, and you bounce it through the walls and the windows are shaking in the panes. That's what you're getting from AC/DC.
Yeah.
With this album, you're not getting what you expect from The Who.
No.
Yeah.
And it's so off-brand, it's off-putting.
Though, I mean, arguably you could say this is while they were still, you know, figuring out what they were.
That too, yeah. And that's the thing, it's so early as well. You've got to allow for that.
I mean, they've been around for a few years before this, but, you know.
It was their 4th studio album, and I think it was like their, like, maybe 5th or 6th, like, album. Like,
so they've been together a good 5 or 6 years minimum.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, they're not. I mean,
yeah, you know,
they got together in '64, so yeah, they've been together about 5 years.
Yeah.
I do think that by the time, because they had I Can't Explain, My Generation, Substitute, and Happy Jack all before this.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder how much of this album sold because it was The Who.
I think I think the only one I'd say that was like I'd say was a music that I would think would call anywhere near a musical masterpiece from The Who. It was Post Tommy. That's the song Won't Get Fooled Again, which and again, it's kind of basic, but that's the one thing to me that is a really a masterpiece song from The Who.
See, for me, the track that is The Who. If someone says to me The Who, I think My Generation.
My Generation, yeah.
That's The Who for me. And again, it's that simple, repetitive. Very, you know, it's almost a march for teenagers.
Yeah.
But this album is not that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's weird though, because those two songs we just sort of mentioned, like My Generation, which is the sort of like real big youth culture, you know. Won't Get Fooled Again is almost like the other end of that in a way that
and even in timing, they sandwich this album.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the problem. It's almost like they had a mid-career slump, and this album was in the middle of it. And they were looking for something and trying to recapture it, and they missed the mark with this album.
And so we'll move on to There's a Doctor, which is one of the ones that you kind of...
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was the first time in the album it even occurred to me that the father didn't know what the mother had done.
Yeah.
The first time I listened to it. This is where the story got really convoluted.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, it's like, yeah, they're looking for a cure, but it's quite obvious the mother had something to do with causing it in the first place.
Yeah.
And the father did too, but wait, hold on, no, the father thinks he's what? And it just, this is the point at which you sort of go, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, and then Go to the Mirror, which out of this section is kind of the standout track. Like by this section, I mean like you know, they're like from like between Pinball Wizard and Sally Simpson. Like Go to the Mirror. Yeah. And it's very classic The Who. Yeah.
It sounds like The Who. Like if I heard a bit of that track somewhere, I'd be, oh, that's The Who. I wouldn't even have to name it. That's The Who.
you know, basically the doctors, telling Tommy that he needs to do this himself.
Yeah, so this is the doctor who's finally twigged that Tommy's issues are not physical, they're psychosomatic.
Yeah.
Because Tommy might be blind, but Tommy can see himself in a mirror, or Tommy's eyes are focusing. So the whole point is his eyes are seeing, but his brain ain't processing. This is psychosomatic. And again, of the songs, this is the one that's...
Yeah. Honestly, Tommy, Can You Hear Me could have been, folded into either Go to the Mirror or Smash the Mirror.
I feel like Tommy, Can You Hear Me should have been the start of Smash the Mirror.
Yeah.
Because it follows on, Can I Help to Cheer You? You Don't Answer My Call.
Yeah.
It's the same. I don't understand why there's a song break there at all.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, because like both these songs are like only a minute and a half long.
Yeah, and like even on a track list, it like even as like a track list, it makes a lot more narrative sense to go from like, Go to the Mirror, Smash the Mirror.
Yeah. And with the mother in the background singing within those songs of Can You Hear Me, rather than being a separate song, because it just breaks it. It breaks the narrative. And this is what I mean by this was clearly written by someone who doesn't have a damn clue how to write a musical narrative.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this could have been one sort of song with a few sort of breakdowns and tempo changes, and so it could have...
And if you go back to that thing of having different people singing different parts, you could have easily interwoven them.
Yeah, and that would have been how it would have worked a lot better.
And it would have been brilliant, because you would have had that tempo change and mood change between the various bits and then different...
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have made something brilliant out of three things that aren't so great.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the track list should go to the Mirror, combine Tommy, Can You Hear Me, and Smash the Mirror.
Yeah.
But I feel like There's a Doctor I Found could have probably gone on the end of Pinball Wizard.
Yeah.
To make that reasonable.
So
because
I mean, why is that a track on its own? It's like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to mimic the structure of an opera with bits of tracks here, there, and everywhere. But no.
But opera still doesn't do that, because opera still has that juxtaposed between two people singing two different things at once. And that's not what they've done here.
It's almost like these shorter tracks are trying to take the place of the chorus within an opera.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
it doesn't work.
It's not working.
In this sense, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because the point of the chorus is that they narrate the plot. These shorter tracks are not narrating the plot.
No.
It makes no sense. It's structurally unsound. It's not something that can be followed easily.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the different characters, it changes with, unless the mother is the chorus, which could be done to work.
Yeah.
You could have made the mother the chorus and made it work. Yeah. And all the parts of the mother used as chorus interludes.
Yeah.
But this just, it's too all over the shop.
Yeah.
And then we come to Sensation.
Yeah.
Which is the moment you wonder if you're stoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it suddenly, if you thought it didn't make sense before, it sure as hell doesn't now.
Yeah, because now, now Tommy's cured and now he's like a preacher. Yeah,
this is the Heinlein moment.
Yeah.
This is the Heinlein vibes track.
And like becoming a preacher is cured for any of that trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's become a messiah figure, which is just
Yeah, and honestly, I think Sensation and Miracle Cure probably could have been one song.
I mean, for me, what I would have done, I would have put within the track listing, I'd have put Miracle Cure before Sensation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense otherwise.
It makes
it would have led in
makes
better.
no sense. It certainly makes no sense when you change sides for this 10-second little thing called Miracle Cure.
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that this is a recurring thing throughout this, that it makes no sense. Is just a recurring thing throughout this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's trying to have a non-linear narrative in an attempt to make it seem more technical than it is.
Yeah.
The problem is it's failing to do that, so it just comes off as confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would, it's. I mean, I'm not saying it would have rescued this, or everything that was bad about this, but just some of the things that they could have done there which would have made this a little easier to understand for people. People, it could have. It's just little things that could have improved this. So I'm not saying it wouldn't have turned it into a complete masterpiece, but
but it would have made it a little better than just being important for its place in the history of the genre.
Yeah.
I mean, what I would have done personally is I'd have had Miracle Cure before Sensation, then I would have had a repeat of Miracle Cure before Sally Simpson.
Yeah.
To really emphasize that news, this character has grown, this character has become something.
Because it could be. I mean, really,
and has hit the news and has become a messianic figure.
I mean,
that would have been what I'd have done with it.
I mean, really, Miracle
not saying
Cure.
It's the right way, but that's what
Miracle
I'd have done with it.
Cure could have been both an intro and an outro to Sensation and part of the track.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that would have been the way I'd have done it.
It's the. So I mean, this is the thing, that it's just little things that could have been tweaked, a little bit, which would have made this thing. Because if you are trying to tell a story, through this medium, I almost think you've got kind of, in a way, got to, not necessarily, but I think you kind of, it's generally a good idea to go in a linear way.
I mean, the problem with it is, in this medium with no visual stimulus, you've kind of got to spoon feed the plot to the audience, because all we're doing is listening. But the problem is it spoon feeds the wrong things.
Yeah.
It's spoon feeding a simple tell-it plot and simple lyrics when it didn't need to. It could have easily elevated the lyrics and made them a bit more complex.
Yeah.
But then spoon fed the actual order of the narrative and lifted the entire thing by doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I did not need you to tell me outright some of these things.
Yeah,
you could have insinuated them on me.
And you would have had needed less trigger warnings had they done that.
Mm.
I mean, at this point, the trigger warnings are, I mean, I understand why it's so explicit. My issue is not so much that it needs trigger warnings. My issue is that if you're going to deal with issues that need trigger warnings, deal with them properly.
Yeah.
And it does feel like this was written more like catharsis than anything else. And that's all well and good, write it as catharsis, but when you're releasing it for public consumption, edit it and put it together into something coherent first.
Yeah, it would have been a lot better with a little more polish.
Yeah. But I can also understand why he wouldn't want someone to be touching it if it's his catharsis and just wanted it the way it is. I can also understand that, and that's valid as well. It doesn't mean it makes it a good album.
Yeah.
It just means I understand why it's not.
And and of course, like, Sensation, it is pretty much the only one of only two songs that's actually from Tommy's perspective.
Yeah. And Tommy, we see the tone of Tommy.
Yeah.
I feel like we were supposed to be sympathizing with Tommy by this point in the album.
Yeah.
And therefore Tommy was written like a little bit of a sociopath. But I didn't have the sympathy for Tommy because all I've been given is all these things that have happened to him, but I've not been given anything of the character.
Yeah.
And so by the time I meet the character, yes, all these terrible things have happened, but he's just a little sociopath. He's
There's only one song that delivers any character for Tommy at all, and that's Pinball Wizard.
Yeah. And all that tells me is he's a frightened kid who's trying to get away from something.
Yeah.
And that doesn't give him a character I can relate to. And then this comes along and I'm just like, this dude clearly grew up into a whack job. What the hell?
Yeah.
That's what's going on in my head there. I can't, yeah.
And actually, I kind of liked Sally Simpson.
At least Sally Simpson is written like an actual song.
Yeah.
It has a definitive 3-part structure with a repeated chorus and a plot.
Yeah.
And it's self-contained. Sally Simpson on its own is a reasonably good track.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's triggering us all folk.
Yeah.
But that's par for the course for this album.
Yeah. You know, fangirl
Groupie,
falls. Yeah, groupie falls in love with Tommy, gets on stage and gets beaten by the cops, and then goes and off to America.
Yeah, then runs away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what I meant by you can lift the lyrics. The lyrics of Sally are not bad. The lyrics are actually very good.
Yeah. Sally Simpson's a very good a good song.
It's just a good song. I don't have any argument with it.
Yeah,
my argument is why isn't the rest of the album this good?
Yeah.
Don't necessarily listen to my opinion on this, Sandy, because I don't particularly like The Who anyway. So
yeah. Never again. Like I can get why like someone would, feel it as catharsis. But
we're talking technically and musically, it's not.
It's like as an example of the rock opera. It's a good example of proto rock opera.
Yeah,
and I think you're being
generous with that.
Generous, yeah. Thanks, Noodle. That was the word I was looking for.
Like it's got good roots. It probably could have used a bit more polish to be a truly great album, but I can see why more polish wasn't put to it.
And I agree with you, Never. You can rip any rock band apart.
I mean, to an extent, the rawness of it feeds into the plot and the narrative and gives it that depth. But I think it's a bit... Do you know what it's like an example? So there's a story. Story time. Gather around, children. There's a story of a black musician in America at the height of the civil rights movement, writing a song that he wanted children performing on, a choir of children. And initially, he insisted that this choir of children had to be black children.
Yeah.
Because it was a song about being black.
Yeah.
And so he went to the local school, the local black school, and he found the kids, and the kids sounded horrendous. They were just awful. They couldn't follow direction. They were out of time. They were out of tune. And the guy was a perfectionist. And if anyone's heard this story, you'll understand why I'm not saying his name. So he went to the posh school up the road with the white kids, and he recorded the white kids instead on a track about what it means to be a young black person in America at the height of the civil rights movement. Because the sound was more important to him than the principle he had.
Yeah.
And it feels like this is the opposite. And I cannot, in good conscience, criticize it for that.
Yeah.
Because what it's done is it's stuck to the principle of the principle is more important than the sound. However, the sound is atrocious.
And I think
there's a balance to be struck.
And I think part of the reason why, personally myself am being so harsh on Tommy is because, it's mentioned as, one of the great rock operas, largely because it was one of the first. And I listened to it and it didn't really match the hype for me.
Yeah, it's not a touch on Hero, which we'll do next week. It's not
next week.
I think it's I mean, maybe obviously you have to maybe view it through the lens of the time sometimes. That
I mean, for what it is,
this was groundbreaking for what it was.
It's the seed of a lot, but it's not something. It's like. Would I rather have a Benz Model 1 or a modern Ford Mondeo? Well, I'll take the Mondeo.
Yeah.
It's it owes itself to the Benz Model 1, but I don't want to drive a three-wheeler with, that's over 100 years old design. I want something with four wheels, the engine in the right place, and a working steering wheel. Thank you.
And then, apparently, the press of the life becomes too much for Tommy, and he stops touring.
Yeah.
Where we get I'm Free and Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Free to me. It listens like someone going through a mental break.
Yeah.
And at this point in the plot for this character, I'd say it's about damn time.
Yeah.
Because how much are you going to take before you finally snap?
It also feels like a touring sucks song.
Yeah. This is school's out. I'm done. I can take a break.
Like it kind of feels like it has the same energy of Turn the Page.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we've got Welcome, which is creepy.
Yeah.
It's just creepy.
Yeah.
I've just decided from now on I'm going to review these songs in like one word and a facial expression, and this one's just creepy.
Yeah. and so Welcome, people are starting to come, to Tommy, the people in his town, and he's starting to like rebuild a following.
Yeah.
And this is very, again, the religious undertones of this are very pointed.
Yeah. And there's a reason why I paired this with Hero.
Yeah. There is that messianic undertone.
Yeah.
And then we have the betrayal. And I'm calling it the betrayal. Tommy's holiday camp.
Yes.
Because Tommy then takes all these people who've put their trust and their faith in him and offers them up to Uncle Ernie.
Yeah. Now, here, as I was listening to it, I like when I first, when I heard Tommy's Holiday Camp, I'm like, okay, so Uncle Ernie's being a bastard and profiting off Tommy's popularity. But then I heard We're Not Gonna Take It.
And
I'm like,
slides into
fuck,
place.
no. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Tommy it almost is like Tommy has become the next generation of Uncle Ernie by the time you get to We're Not Gonna Take It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tommy's gone from sensation to full-on cult leader.
Yeah. And this is what I mean by this is a tragedy that he didn't break the cycle and didn't get out.
Yeah.
And We're Not Gonna Take It finishes that. And we see it a lot. Historically, we see people make it big and the power goes to their head and they start doing things that most people don't get away with. And it goes on for decades.
Yeah.
And that's quite clearly the plot of Tommy.
Now, I wonder if Peter Furler, like if the last two songs were written as a self-reminder for Peter Furler, like if we're going on the theory that this was largely catharsis. Pete Townsend.
This is what you could become. Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this
because
a warning rather than a
I'm just looking at this now. That Tommy's Holiday Camp was written by Keith Moon.
Yeah.
And
then the last song, We're Not Going to Take It, it's credited as Daltrey with Townsend and Entwistle.
Yeah. Now, Townsend is well known for his good works. His children's charities, his Amnesty International, he's left wing, he's very progressive. There's nothing that I'm aware of that would suggest that is anything but the truth of the man.
Yeah.
I sincerely hope there isn't anything that would suggest otherwise.
Let me I'm going to have to Google this because I think I'm reminded of something, but just carry on. There was a legal issue. He got a caution for that. So he got a caution from the Metropolitan Police many years ago in the investigation into, well, just say the letters CP.
Yeah.
He was placed on the register for 5 years after he admitted to using his card to access a site. However, he initially claimed the images were part of a research that he was doing. However, in his autobiography, he'd accessed illegal images to prove that British banks were complicit in that. So his story changed a couple of times. He's largely not been damaged by that in the same way others have, because he has certainly not been caught at it again.
And his story, while changing in detail, has remained broadly the same.
Yeah.
That he was doing it to catch other people out.
Yeah. I could believe that. I don't know that is there anything that says that's not the case. Was it a well thought out way of doing it? No.
But when you're a victim and you're trying to help others, sometimes you don't think straight. And I can, which is why I was sort of building up to saying I sincerely hope this album, particularly the end of this album, is a warning to himself and not any form of confession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I'm aware of that would suggest that. And I am not suggesting that in the slightest.
Yeah, because
that would be, I don't have the money for a court case. But also because I don't believe it, because there's no evidence to that so far as I'm aware.
Before I knew that bit about Pete Townsend being a survivor, like the bit of the album that felt most like autobiographical is Sensation to I'm Free. You know, because it feels very much like a rock band touring kind of like autobiography set of songs.
Yeah. Now, we have to be careful with the way we put this, which is why I've sort of said, I can appreciate a survivor writing an album like this.
Yeah.
I can appreciate why the album is so bad if it was essentially a piece of catharsis.
Yes.
I'm quite sure, you know, if you asked most survivors to write down what happened to them and put it to music, it would be as raw and as unpolished as this, but equally they wouldn't want it screwing with, because that's their experience and their words.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is entirely valid.
Yeah. So despite the way we're criticizing it, it was still an achievement, and it was still. It's probably still something. It's something that's worth it being there, even if it's not the sort of thing that a lot of us would listen to.
I think for me, it doesn't have to be good. The thing is, I've sat here and I've criticized it and I've bitched about it for the best part of an hour and a half.
Yeah.
The truth is, though, it doesn't have to be a good album. It doesn't have to be musically competent. It doesn't have to be lyrically brilliant or even lyrically okay. It doesn't have to be technically adept. All it has to be is what he wanted to put out there to tell his story.
Sincerity.
In whatever way he chose to do it.
It needs that sincerity, which it does have.
Yeah, it does.
And if this is his truth, then he's told it, and no one can criticize that. You can criticize the way he's done it. You can criticize the technical aspects of it. You can't criticize him for actually putting it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
especially
if anything, I would
none of us
applaud
could
him
do any
for
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I dread to imagine what, if any of us with any kind of history like that tried to write, how it would turn out.
Yeah.
I already know.
Oh, yeah, believe me, so do I. That was my therapy homework this week.
Oh.
It's not great, I promise you.
No, it's not. So it's not good.
It's not. It's raw, and it's repetitive, and it's almost childish, and it lacks a real depth, because I'm trying to avoid the real depth.
Because you don't want to do it. You don't
want to do it. These
bits
are
of
not
your brain that
going,
I cannot relive that.
It is literally like, and this is the analogy I've used more than once describing this. It's like someone was holding his hand half an inch above the hot plate on a stove, and they were trying to push it down, and every instinct he has is trying to pull away, even as he can feel his hand warming up. Yeah. That's what's happening with this album. He doesn't want to write it. He has to write it. He doesn't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for me, it has a place. You can learn as much from a bad example as a good example, as much from catharsis as from joy.
And as you've already said, Noodle, the rawness of it actually does reflect how raw the whole thing would have been.
Yeah. It could have been technically better. It could have been, we've sat here and talked about ways we could improve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
But you can't improve someone's catharsis.
But like knowing how pseudo autobiographical it is, and taking into account its place in the history of the genre, it does go up quite a few rungs in my esteem.
Yeah. It is a success for what it is and what it was intended to be.
Yeah.
It is not a success in the broader genre.
Yeah.
It was a success in and of itself.
Yeah,
so.
I mean,
criticize who we like. It was a success as an album.
Yeah, I mean, it spawned a genre. It spawned a genre. It was the seed of a genre.
This was a successful album at the time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those where I think the only person who has any real right to judge whether this album was a success or not, whether this album was had a positive outcome or not, is the person who wrote it.
Yeah.
Because it's his story and it's his catharsis. Now, we can sit here and criticize all we like. Yeah, that's fair. It's in the public eye. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when it's something like this, it would be like reading... It would be like sitting and trying to do a literary analysis of the Diary of Anne Frank.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? Because some things shouldn't be criticized in that way.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think in a way with the construction of this that they were trying to, I think, almost do two things at once, which is maybe why structurally it has some issues with that, you know, it was trying to give you the kind of story, but also having its own sort of song being something it could be enjoyed individually. Yeah. And I think that was the attempt. I don't think it came off really, but it's trying to get for the best of both worlds, and you know you don't. Yeah. Usually when you do that.
Yeah. I tend to find as I get older that media that tries to sit on the fence between two ideas, I can never gel with, because I'm just like, just fall on one side or the other. Just and go hell for leather on it, pick it and stick to it, and go for it, win or lose. And I'll always have more. I'll always gel with it better than I will something that tries to skirt a line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is quite clearly trying to skirt a line as well, because there's only so much you can put out into the public domain.
The
public view.
Given that a lot of the songs are credited as being collaborative efforts, like maybe it could have been because, some members of the band wanted to do a rock opera, and Townsend wanted to do the cathartic story.
Yeah.
He wanted the cathartic story, but he also had the vision for the rock opera. He did an interview about it, so yeah, he did actually want that.
I think he wanted to tell a story
in rock,
which
is a rock opera.
But he knew that the style of music of The Who was not the same as the style of music as something like Meatloaf, where he could get it all out in one 13-minute song.
Yeah.
So the rock opera was his next best option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my take.
And some of the songs were written before he totally conceived of the entire album, so they'd written some of the songs. And they came from those feelings from him, and then he put them into the album. So there is very much that.
I would say what I would think is the guy. I understand why it's arranged the way it is. I understand why he's quite clearly had final creative control over it. It could have benefited from the creative input of a couple of producers.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even just
having said that, he probably wouldn't have wanted that, because then he would have lost control of his own narrative. So
exactly. So it's that balance, isn't it? And that's what I mean. I can now, knowing the backstory, I can appreciate why the album is the way it is.
Yes.
I can also validly say that it could have been much better from an artistic and musical point of view had it had the extra hands in there, but that was not what this album was for.
Yeah.
And therefore it's irrelevant.
It could have been
what the album needed to achieve. It achieved it very well.
So
we
basically,
don't know that. Ask him.
Well, he was happy with it. So
Tommy's, for what Tommy is Tommy is good. And great. For what Tommy is in regards to the rest of the genre, it's not a good example of the genre itself.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. In that sense, it could have been much better. But...
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I would say also that Tommy it served its purpose, but the purpose of the creator is not necessarily aligned with the purpose of the audience.
Yeah.
And therefore that is partially why I personally, as the audience, can say I was disappointed by it, because I was not aware of what its purpose was when I listened. And I think it's it's not a good thing. I'm glad it wasn't put on the album that that's what its purpose was.
Yeah.
And that it gained the success without having to get the sort of pity vote, if you like. But that does illuminate a lot of the album and cast it in a new light.
Yeah, because when you're just going into it knowing it's one of the standout examples of the rock opera, and just knowing Pinball Wizard,
it sets you up for failure.
Yeah.
It's one of those you've got to understand the context before you understand the story.
Yeah. Especially like if your introduction to your songs of the album was Pinball Wizard, and you're going, "Oh, it's going to be an awesome album."
Yeah.
And then you hear it.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
But, in a way, it's like the fact that it gave us tracks like Pinball Wizard, and whatever, means to me it's not a failure. The fact that there's a lot of songs on this that are not that good, but there's a few killer tracks on this. There's some obviously Pinball Wizard. Christmas is a very good track. I mean, I know it's a cover, but Eyesight to the Blind. It was a decent cover.
Yeah,
it was a decent cover.
I mean, for me, the two standout tracks on this album are "Go to the Mirror" and "Sally Simpson."
Yeah.
Those are the two standout tracks for me. They're the ones, if I'm going to return to any tracks on this album, it's going to be those two.
Yeah.
Probably more "Go to the Mirror" than "Sally Simpson."
I think those are pretty good closing statements.
I agree.
I think so.
I think we've covered this one pretty good.
Yeah.
So, Jen, anything to shill?
There'll be a What the Fuck show on Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are talking about gatekeeping. And so, people want to see a group of us talk about the pros and cons of gatekeeping, and not like I can think of any pros for it, but I'm sure there are if you look hard enough. Aside from that, Jenny Morgan and I have got a little project coming up between us, so people should look out for. I'm not sure when we'll start it though. And that's pretty much me.
Yep. Jeff?
Okay. Well, it's coming Thursday, 3:30 p.m. UK time, sort of 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm doing another one of my Wacky World of Twitter streams, and where I've normally gone after religious people, I'm taking a leaf out of Kent Hovine's book. I'm going to whack an atheist. And the atheist that we are going to whack is David Silverman.
Yep.
And I will say,
I'm
hoping. I think Ring will be joining me.
Yep.
I will have spots open. Anybody wants to join that panel, because I was supposed to do this previous week, but I couldn't get anyone sort of together, and the few that I had to drop out.
You annoyed Jenny Morgan by putting that off,
it would have been me and Jenny. That would have been it.
Yeah.
I potentially had a panel, but Ring had to pull out. Dog had to pull out, and yeah.
Yeah, so, I wasn't sure if I would have the energy to do it, and it was actually a good thing that you canceled it, because around the time it would have gone live, I literally crashed for 12 hours.
Oof.
Yeah.
Big off.
So
yes, you would have been in trouble if I heard you did that, Rain.
Yeah.
You would have been in trouble with Spousey.
So after that, of course, Noodle and I will be back on my channel next week with another Asterix stream, and we are doing Asterix and Obelix's birthday.
Yes.
Which I think is another collection of stories, I believe. Yeah. So something similar to what we did about a week or so ago. So look forward to that. Other than that, yeah, I might pop up on some people's streams here and there over the course of the week, as we tend to do. So,
and how about you, Spousey?
Spousey is going to be wandering through post-apocalyptic America tomorrow evening on YouTube, all being well. Probably tripping up
next year then.
Sorry?
Next year then.
Last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be playing Death Stranding again. Probably tripping up, trying to get by now my motorbike's fallen into the river. I had it for less than a session. I'm annoyed. It died. I better be able to make another one soon. So yeah, I got lost and confused near the end of it and went somewhere, but then didn't actually deliver the thing I was supposed to deliver, so I have to go back and I'm confused. Should
have got a good old-fashioned Honda Cub. Those things would take anything.
Yeah, but they're only 50cc.
There's a 90cc as well. It's Cub 90.
But they're manuals.
Yeah.
Also, what he rides is a trike so he can get over the terrain. I wouldn't want a two-wheeler on that kind of terrain.
Oh, that makes it all the more fun.
No, not unless it's a mountain bike. You couldn't take something like a CBR or a Vespa or something, or anything with wheels smaller than like an old-fashioned horse and cart is not going to get over that terrain.
I'll tell you a very quick fun fact about motorcycles that might astound you. Do you know 90% of all Harley Davidson motorcycles ever made are still on the road? The other 10% made it home without breaking down.
I was about to say.
Now, and of course, next week it's kind of it's kind of interesting that next Thursday, on the wacky world of Twitter, we'll be whacking an atheist, because next Sunday on Media Musings, we're actually covering a Christian rock opera. We're doing Hero, the rock opera, which the tagline for was, "What if he was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania?"
And what I'm going to do,
yeah,
for those who want to get a head start on it, or listen to it for next week, I'm just dropping the link to it on Spotify in the chat.
Yeah.
Cool. So you can have a listen and be prepared for next week if you want to set yourself some homework.
Yeah. And of course, Saturday, as usual, presuming we don't, presuming everyone, presuming there's no life shenanigans, there will be a secular D&D.
I thought you said wife shenanigans for a second there. I was going to say, what did I do?
No.
Well, maybe Humanity was flying over.
And then, and this month, on the 28th. So it'll either be replacing Media Musings or taking place afterwards. Who knows? But we'll be I'll be running a special one shot where Scummer, Sam Chaos, and X-Cult Baby will be raiding Kent Hoven's Dinosaur Adventureland to try and get his tax returns.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for that.
Roll investigation.
Yeah. And I do.
Now, just not get us onto whack an atheist. I don't know what will ring.
I do have a hold on, because I think to do a link, I actually have to do it in the actual YouTube chat.
How did we not mention the channel punching bag tonight?
Because it wasn't relevant.
Yeah. But anyways, I do have a Twitter pull up about whether or not I should stream me building the map.
I am of the opinion that you should.
I think so too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How well practiced are you at building maps? I have multiple questions, but that's the first one.
Well, you will have a template to go off of, though, won't you?
Yeah.
Yes, but how well practiced are you at building maps?
I've built all the except for the earliest ones. I've built all the maps for the.
Okay. Next question. Will the instructions be under your left foot?
And if you want to hear that story, go tell your friends, because once I hit 200 subscribers, I will be doing an embarrassing story stream.
So if you do happen to be watching this and are not subbed to Ring, subscribe now.
Please subscribe.
Yeah, I'm 26 away from 200.
Because Ring's embarrassing shenanigans are multiple. We may have to give Ring like an entire day one Sunday to go through them all.
Oh, serious?
Ring's expression. I can't tell if Ring's frozen or...
Yeah.
What a point for Ring to freeze at.
Quick, screenshot.
Got it.
Now you just
I think Ring has frozen.
I had a brief Wi-Fi issue.
Yeah, you're back. It's all right.
We got it. Looking utterly terrified.
Yeah.
He's pensive. That's what he was. He was pensive.
Anyway,
someone screamed. So I think somebody screen captured that already.
So what I might do is I might set up a Twitter poll finding out who wants to find out which Ring story.
Yeah.
Have everyone vote on the order of Ring stories in the stream.
But the main point is let's get Ring to the magic number first.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, if people have got a poll to vote in, maybe they'll subscribe to Ring to see the outcome.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But anyways, taglines.
I don't really do them as taglines, as you know, to be honest. Yep. So, you know.
And so, Noodle?
Noodle. Okay. Take care, be good. And if you can't be good, use your noodle.
And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a selfie stick. So don't choke on it.